Hi, and welcome to our video about vocal health and hygiene. I'm Stephen, again, and this is Clarissa, a speech-language therapist who works with trans folk.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks so much for being here. I'm really glad to have you.
You're very welcome. It's great to be here.
We're going to start right on in with the practical stuff. The things you can do to help your voice last longer, feel better, and work in an efficient and healthy kind of way. And the first one is one of my favorites because it's also a little bit silly, and I like that. And it's a straw and some bubbles. Tell us all about it. How does it work?
Well, okay, so for this exercise, this is called lax vox or tube resistance. It's a very common exercise that we use for people with voice problems, but it's an excellent exercise to relax the voice as well. So what we need to do is just grab a straw. So we can use a wide diameter straw. This one is actually from a bubble tea shop, and a glass of water. So we fill up the glass about a third full with water. We don't want it too full because when we blow bubbles into it, they'll just spill all over the place. The reason we're doing this is that when we blow through a straw, that creates resistance in the throat and basically relaxes the vocal folds so that they vibrate a little bit easier. It also has another benefit of working on our breathing, so our diaphragm muscles, which I believe you covered in previous sessions. So the diaphragm, when we breathe in, should go out. So, and then when we breathe out, should come in. So let's just practice first of all. If you want to grab that straw.
I stole this one from a Starbucks.
So what we'll do first is we'll just blow through the straw and feel the diaphragm go in. So big breath in first. And very nice. How did that feel?
Great.
Did you feel the tummy go inwards?
I did, yeah.
Good. Okay. And now we will do that, but we'll just hum a little bit of sound through that straw. So like this. Really nice. And as you're doing this, you should feel a little bit of buzz around the lips. Did you feel that?
I did, and all the way down the straw as well.
Cool. Yeah, that's really amazing. So the next step is we'll up the resistance, and we'll do this with some water. So what we're going to do is up the resistance by blowing bubbles into the water. So I've got a glass here. You can also do this through a bottle. Same thing again, just put the straw into the water just about halfway down and simply take a breath in and blow. Good.
Fun. I do enjoy that.
So you see all those lovely bubbles gathering. Now we don't want the bubbles to overfill because that means that we're putting too much pressure in. Okay, so we're breathing too strongly. So we want to keep the bubbles just nice and steady and keep the throat nice and relaxed. Okay, so next step, hum again through the straw while the straw is in the water. Okay, so a bit like this. So big breath in. Good.
Beautiful. If theoretically I was blowing and having trouble getting it to come out of the straw, what might be going wrong?
I guess the straw would be a bit blocked, or the straw could be too narrow as well. So it's good to have that wider resistance. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like every once in a while I do this with someone and we find out that there's lots of air coming out of their nose.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, that can happen too. Yeah. Or poor lip seal. So if you don't have your lips strongly enough around the straw, so if it's a bit kind of slack like this, we're going to get some air escape. So yeah, plus it can escape through the nose. So that's a really good point. Yeah. Okay, so if we do this kind of for several rounds and then really just start to notice the throat relaxing. So we'll just do it once more, noticing that sensation in the throat, noticing the nice buzz on the lips. We'll do it again. Beautiful. Lovely. Nice. Did you feel that time in the throat?
I did. I feel like I feel a little bit of opening up happening in my throat. Like the air pressure is just opening and relaxing things. Do you know what? I feel like when I wake up in the morning, I really like how open and relaxed and loose my voice feels. And this kind of sometimes feels like it resets it to that in a really nice way.
Yes, amazing.
Yeah.
So this is really useful actually as a cool down exercise as well. So if our voice is feeling a little bit tired at the end of the day, so if we've been chatting all day long, it's excellent just to do a little bit of cool down by doing this exercise. So that's brilliant. It is a reset, exactly that.
Yeah.
So next step is moving around the pitch. So we can do some pitch glides. So simply going woo, but through the straw. Let's give it a go. So big breath in. Good. So going up and down and up and down. Lovely. Or we can stay on higher pitches. So just on one note like this. Ooh, through the straw. Cool. Or on a lower pitch either. So ooh. Fun, right?
It is. The low note makes me think of like a deep sea creature, like a kraken. That's what we're going for, right?
Yes. That's exactly what we're going for.
Beautiful.
I think this is, like I said, just to summarize, brilliant exercise, warming up, cooling down, and really relaxing that voice.
Yeah. I really love how the slides feel as well, because I feel like all of my range is really nice and relaxed in a way that it's not always when I'm singing. And I feel like, so singers do this a lot. As a sort of standard warm-up-y thing, and that's in the warm-up video as well. If you missed that, go see the warm-up video. I feel like this is like that, but like squared, like it's the follow-on.
Yes, it really ups the ante on that. But I mean, if you don't have a straw, or if you're just out and about, if you're walking to a rehearsal, or if you're just walking to work, you can do this, but without the straw, through other resistance sounds. So exactly that. So that has a very similar effect of relaxing those vocal folds. Also, you can do it on a V sound, so a or a and again, you can slide the pitch around or so there's lots of options out there. It doesn't always have to be, walking down the street carrying a bottle and a straw, which may not always be so appropriate.
Great way to get 2 seats to yourself on the bus also.
That's it.
Gorgeous. Thank you.
Yes, you're very welcome.
I love bubbles. You must all try bubbles. It's lots of fun. We also, very excitingly, are going to talk about steaming. I brought in a really posh steamer because this is my day job. But you can also buy really cheap ones of these on Amazon. Or if you really don't want to invest, boil some water in the stove. But don't scald yourself. What is steaming and why?
Right. Okay. So like Stephen said, this is a very fancy steamer that we can just pour boiling water into and inhale the steam through the straw. Okay. If you don't have one of these, yes, you can do the old-fashioned method. So pour some boiling water into a bowl, put a towel over your head, and just inhale the steam for about 10 minutes. So you asked for the reason why we do this lovely exercise. So our voice, we need to think of it as our instrument, right? So just in the same way that you would tune your instrument if you're a musician every single day, we need to tune the voice and we need to hydrate the voice. So water intake is, we can't beat it. We need to drink 2 liters. We need water to stay alive, to stay hydrated, keep the vocal folds hydrated. But actually, drinking water will not hydrate the vocal folds directly in that moment. The vocal folds are at the top of the airway, so the water doesn't touch the airway, or else we'd be in trouble. We'd start coughing and choking everywhere. But when we inhale steam, so that can go all the way down to those vocal folds and bring you that direct hit of hydration where we need it. Yeah. So again, excellent as a warm-up in the morning. So sometimes people report in the mornings their voice is feeling a bit tired, or there might be a little bit of mucus sitting there. So it's excellent to clear that. So first thing in the morning, about 10 minutes, or again at the end of the day for about 10 minutes as a sort of cool down.
Yeah. I often feel like I'm very dehydrated when I wake up in the morning, and I'm just not patient enough to wait for drinking water to do the work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not surprised, because when we sleep, right, so we're asleep for 8-9 hours ideally, we haven't had a drink in that amount of time. So of course we're going to be dehydrated. So like you say, first thing in the morning is the best time you can possibly do it. Have a big glass of water as well before or afterwards, but doing this will be your very quick fix to get that instant hit of hydration to that area.
Yeah,
it's also
absolutely.
quite relaxing.
I feel like when you do it with a big bowl of water, it's also very good for your skin.
It is. Or I have a lot of clients who use facial steamers. So that has that dual purpose as well. So don't feel like you need to rush out and buy one of these. No. Use whatever you have at home. Use a steamer, or some people have nebulizers. If you've got things like asthma or other respiratory conditions, that has the same effect.
Use what you've got.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Exactly.
You mentioned drinking 2 liters of water. Can I drink 2 liters of coffee instead? Is that fine?
we wouldn't always recommend that, to be honest. You can have maybe 2 cups of coffee, but we generally recommend to stick to those 2 cups because caffeine can be really dehydrating. It's a diuretic, so it makes you go to the loo. It makes you lose all that moisture that the water is putting in. So the golden rule is for every cup of coffee that you drink or every caffeinated drink, so that could be tea or, Diet Coke, any of those sorts of drinks, we'd also recommend you have a glass of water of the equivalent volume, but also to drink your 2 litres every single day. I know that sounds like a lot. If you look at a 2-litre bottle of something, it seems like an awful lot, but we recommend if you just sip the water throughout the day. So don't feel like you need to down a litre at one point and then not drink for hours and then down another litre. It's about just sipping continuously, always having that bottle. If you're working from home, or if you're, just whatever you're doing, always have that bottle by your side, and then you'll just see it, you'll reach for it. And the more you drink, the more you will feel like you need it as well, which is really good. Also excellent for the skin.
Ideal. Beauty tips in the vocal health video. I've learned that antihistamines can actually be quite drying for your vocal folds, which is important for me to know because I'm allergic to everything.
Yes, right. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. I mean, lots of medications do have that effect on the throat. And some people think, oh, why do I feel so dry? Why is my throat feeling dry and the whole vocal tract just isn't feeling as it used to? So it's definitely worth having a look at the medication that you're taking, always reading the pamphlet and having a chat with your GP or whoever has prescribed that medication in the first place, looking at those side effects. But again, number 1 rule, keep hydrated. So if you drink enough water throughout the day and add in that steaming, hopefully that will counteract any negative effects of any medication that you're taking.
Beautiful. That's great advice. Thank you.
So there's one more thing that I think that we should discuss as well, and that is acid reflux. A lot of people suffer from reflux without even really knowing the effect that it has on the voice, or maybe not even knowing what reflux is in the first place. So essentially, acid reflux is stomach acid coming up from the esophagus or the food pipe and spilling over into those vocal fold, where the area where we make sound. So if you do suffer from things like heartburn or indigestion, so lots of burping after meals, it's important that first of all you get to the root cause. So maybe having a think of, okay, why is this happening? So some people are just more prone to their tummies being upset after things like curries, so lots of spicy food, caffeine again, tomatoes, and other really acidic foods. Alcohol is another big one as well. And alcohol is also quite dehydrating, so that's another reason why if we are trying to really change and modify our voices for the better, we need to just keep those things to a minimum.
I hear that sometimes people only get acid reflux when they're lying down, so like when they're asleep, and we don't always notice things that are happening when we're asleep.
Exactly.
How might a person know that they've got that?
Well, so things that you want to look out for are coughing in the mornings. So that's a big one with people with acid reflux who don't even realize they have it. So they'll say, oh, I just wake up and I feel all this phlegm in my throat. I feel like I need to cough and clear a lot. So if that is you might want to think, okay, could I be suffering from a little bit of acid reflux? Should I maybe modify my diet? Should I see a GP? There's also some medications that can help this as well. Medications which line the gut and reduce the acid, but also things like Gaviscon, which you can buy over the counter. But we would always recommend that you seek, help from a GP first.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's simple things like, if you do have reflux, so sleeping with extra pillows so that you're not fully horizontal and so that the food isn't coming directly upwards as you're asleep. What else do we recommend?
Disappointingly, I feel like avoiding dairy is a thing that always gets recommended, which is a shame because it's delicious.
Yes, it is. And again, it is person specific,
Yeah.
So we don't use these as blanket rules of, you must cut out dairy, you mustn't drink coffee, because everybody will be affected in different ways. But what you said about dairy there is it can just cause this little bit of catarrh in the throat for some people, or a bit of a claggy feeling, as if there's something in the throat and then you have to cough and clear all the time. So on that point of coughing and clearing, if you are somebody who clears your throat a bit, such as this, and lots of people actually do, and it's a habit, and it's a habit that people don't realize they're doing. But the reason I mention it is because reflux can cause that need to clear your throat all day, because it's that tiny little droplets of acid that are just coming up and irritating the throat, so you feel the need to clear. So we really don't want to do this, and the reason is, I think you may have spoken about simple vocal anatomy in previous sessions. So we've got 2 vocal folds in the throat, right? And they sit here, and then to make sound, those vocal folds vibrate at about, depending on the pitch that you're at, anywhere from 150 times a second up to 600 times a second if you're a soprano, right? Or if you're singing really, really high pitches. So every time that we cough and clear the throat, it's like this. Those vocal folds are really, really banging together, which can cause them to become really dry, making the throat feel a bit scratchy and uncomfortable. So it's a really good idea to try to not do that, try to stamp out that behavior before you do it.
Yeah.
Easier said than done, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Habits. But
Exactly.
I mean, our vocal folds are about the size of a fingernail anyway. So
Yeah.
they're real tiny.
They are, but it's amazing.
Yeah.
That's where, as we're speaking to each other right now, the sound is purely coming from here.
Yeah.
We're shaping the sound with our lips, with our tongue and all the movement that's happening in the mouth. But the actual sound, the pure ah, that is all two tiny little muscles in the throat. So they really do become very vulnerable if we don't really look after them. So just things that we can do to avoid throat clearing then, or to reduce that throat clearing. Always, again, coming back to our water, having a sip of water if you do feel that urge to clear your throat. So just have a big sip and a big hard swallow, as if you're swallowing a golf ball. That's always the tip that I give. And then if you really, really feel like you must do a cough, can you try to do a silent cough? So we call this a huff. So it's a bit like this. So you're just exhaling forcefully through the mouth rather than doing the full okay? Sometimes doing a little gentle hum, such as bit of a glide, can just clear whatever's sitting on those vocal folds as well, because the vocal folds, remember, are vibrating, they're coming together. So the idea is that, that will blow away whatever is irritating the throat. But often, it is that habit, like you said. So sometimes it's just a matter of waiting. So maybe just stopping, counting to 5 in your head, having a bit of a swallow, and hopefully that urge will pass.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. But it does take a bit of time and dedication.
Yeah.
Stick with it.
And that's okay.
That is okay.
I think everything we've said in every video takes a bit of time and dedication.
Exactly.
But everything is so flexible, and that's delightful.
Exactly.
You mentioned seeing a GP earlier for reflux, if that's something that's ongoing. What are some other signs that a person might need to see a GP for voice-related things, or a speech-language therapist like yourself, or even an ENT?
Okay, so really, really good question. I guess it's important to mention, the voice, when we're trying to change the voice, of course, it will be under a lot of stress because we're doing a lot to it. We're asking a lot of it. In the same way that if we go to the gym, we will feel a bit tired, we'll feel a bit sore, our muscles will feel achy. The same sensations will be happening in the throat. You may feel a sense of, ooh, I've really, really done a lot today, okay? When we know that something's not quite right, that's a little bit different, okay? There's what I call good ache and bad ache. So good ache is the sense that, okay, my throat feels like it's had a bit of a workout, feels a little bit more open, there's something changing, okay? That's a good feeling. We know that we've changed something in order to open that up or to change the vocal fold setting, okay? Bad ache is if you feel any sense of sharp pain, any scratchiness. So scratchiness is a sign of lots of coughing, lots of trauma, lots of harsh vocalization. So speaking a bit too loudly or too forcefully or straining, okay? So doing that repeatedly, we will end up with actually a sore throat. Yeah? They're the big red flags. Other red flags are hoarseness. So if the voice is a bit sort of hoarse like this, it's not smooth, okay? Or if it's really strained, if we really can't get the sound out. So you'll get a different variation of lots of different sounds that just really won't sound right. But, it is a fine line, isn't it? So I think you need to be mindful and really thinking in your head, well, if the voice is a bit sore, how long has this been going on? If it's been going on for longer than 2 weeks, we generally say, then at that point you might want to get checked out by a GP. So generally, the GP will then refer you on to an ENT or an ear, nose and throat doctor who'll want to have a look at your throat with a camera. And then from there, if they see anything that's not quite right, and this can be any number of things, you've probably heard of things like nodules, singers get them, or polyps, or various different things that can happen in the throat, then that's the time that the ENT will refer you to a speech therapist if there's really something wrong. So seeing a speech therapist for voice modification is totally different because we're working with healthy larynxes, right? We're working with healthy throats. I think it's just being really on top of that vocal health. So doing all of the things that we've discussed today will really help to keep that throat, that larynx, the voice box in tip-top shape. So that will help to prevent those instances of something actually going wrong. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. absolutely makes sense. Yeah.
Cool.
It's a bit of our body that needs taking care of like anything else.
100%.
Particularly if we're making demands of it.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Some of the things that you mentioned can sometimes happen to folks who are taking tea for the first time and having voice changes. So sometimes we lose some of the notes of our range. Sometimes there's a little gap in the middle of our range that we sometimes can't use. Sometimes we get a little bit of hoarseness or breaking. How can we tell the difference between that and maybe something actually going wrong?
So that's a really, really good point as well. Like you said, on tea, in those early few months, there will be a period of vocal instability. The voice will be changing. It will sound like, it's sort of breaking in a way. There might be pitch drops or pitch breaks. That's totally normal. But again, just listening out and feeling for anything that's painful, anything that's scratchy, anything that's sore, or any harsh sounds, so any kind of roughness like that, or any strain, or actually losing the voice, or not being able to make sound at all, something we call aphonia. If that happens, of course, that's a massive red flag. But again, I always recommend for people who are on tea to make a bit of a diary. So every day, just track the changes that you're making, and then you'll know that you're making progress. Yes, things are changing, but not in an unhealthy way.
That's really great advice, I think, to keep track of things. I feel like almost every trans mask person I know started off their vocal transition thinking, I'll make a recording of myself every day and then edit them together. And almost none of us actually get around to it. But just a little sentence a day feels much more manageable. So thank you.
No worries, yeah. I mean, if you've all the time in the world, certainly feel free to do that.
My goodness. Something that I would also love to ask you about is people who maybe are lecturers or salespeople or folks who just talk for a living. I feel like often when we're changing our voice, whether it's because we're changing how we use it or because we're on tea and it's changing on its own, endurance starts to become a little bit of an issue. Do you have any tips for that?
Yeah, absolutely. You're talking about what we call professional voice users. So people who need their voices for their profession. So they can't live without it, essentially. So lecturers, TV, radio presenters, singers, actors, there's a whole host of people who really, really need their voices. So first of all, it's about really looking after your voice. So running through those vocal hygiene tips. So this is what we call vocal hygiene. So in the same way that you have a shower every morning, you brush your teeth every morning, all of these tips that we've spoken about today need to just become part of your daily routine. They're your fundamentals. They're your starting point, okay? But then after that, in the same way that an athlete wouldn't dream of doing a race without doing a warm-up, vocal professionals or professional voice users shouldn't go out into their daily work lives without doing a bit of a warm-up. It's about, looking at the body first. So how's my body feeling when I wake up? So doing your steaming, doing your lax box or your straw work, and then doing some stretches, because if we are quite tense in the body, we're going to tense up and the voice will tense and we won't be able to sustain and support that sound. So body's number one. I'm sure you've run through these in your warm-up series, but thinking about the body, then thinking about the breath. So always engaging the diaphragm, taking full big breaths in, getting to the sound supported from down here in the belly, rather than pushing the sound from up here in the throat. That's how we end up with strain, right? Especially if we're speaking all day long.
Whenever I'm talking about breath support, the example I always give is Pingu, the little clay animation guy.
I know him.
Because when he makes a really loud noise, you see his whole tummy cave in and his mouth just becomes like a little trumpet. So it's just there to resonate. And I think, yes, correct.
That is excellent. Oh, I haven't noticed that. I must go back and watch some Pingu. But yeah, exactly that. So a lot of people don't realize, that if they don't open their mouths that much, that, they say to me, oh, why can't I make a loud sound, And I say, well, maybe it's something got to do with, how much you're opening your mouth. Because if your mouth is not doing very much, of course, we're going to then strain from here because the sound can only go backwards, right? It's falling down. Whereas if we just slow down a little bit, open the mouth a little bit more, especially if we're lecturing, if we're in a big theater that doesn't have a mic, we actually will need to project. We need to think of our bodies, our postures, opening everything up, and that includes the mouth, it includes the throat. So we need to just do some neck stretches and lots of yawning, opening up the throat throughout the day, and just taking little breaks as well. If you are a professional voice user, really taking breaks, resetting. You can even do a little bit of the lax box throughout the day if you get 5 minutes, just to reset and to relax things and then go again.
I love that. I'm just going to carry a straw and a water bottle everywhere, just in case.
Just in case.
I hesitate to ask because I feel like we already know the answer, but how's smoking for a voice? What's that doing? Is that fine?
Well, I think it'll come as no surprises to anybody that obviously smoking is not the best for our health, okay? But definitely one of the worst things that we can do, unfortunately, for our vocal health. Reason being, right? So every time we smoke, that tar, all those chemicals, the smoke itself is coming in and down through the vocal folds, okay? So the very muscles that we want to keep nice and safe and healthy, so which is causing a really, really drying effect, really irritating effect. It can also cause a little bit of swelling in the vocal folds. And over time, this builds up and ends up to become a voice disorder called rhynchizodema, right? So those vocal folds become really, really thick and fat. So that the thicker the string, if you think of your vocal folds as a guitar string, the lower the sound, right? So the more we smoke, the lower our voice will become. But also just terrible for vocal stamina. So if you're a professional voice user, not the best idea because of that drying effect. So really to be avoided.
When I was at music school, half of the opera department smoked, but they were all convinced that it was fine as long as they didn't speak while they were smoking. Any truth to that?
I wouldn't say so. And people also say, you know, oh, what if I just have a drink after smoking? Well, we made the point earlier that, you know, when we have a drink, it doesn't go anywhere near the vocal folds. So you're not going to hydrate that area immediately after if you have a glass of water, unfortunately. And for one reason or another, generally people tend to have a cigarette with either a drink or a cup of coffee, right? So it's one or the other. And again, we spoke about alcohol, we spoke about caffeine, very drying, very dehydrating for the voice in the first place. So add in a cigarette on top of that, and it's a bit of a recipe for disaster. So to be avoided.
Disappointing news for some people, perhaps.
Yes.
This is a hot take, but what if we just smoked half as many cigarettes? That's already better, right?
Well, look, we yes
I don't
and
even
no.
smoke.
Yeah, of course.
Everyone
Look,
should probably stop.
of course, smoking is addictive.
No.
We understand, you know, it's really, really difficult for some people to quit. So we do empathize with that for sure.
Yeah.
So yes, if you can cut down, that is much better. So if you go from 4 cigarettes a day to 2, brilliant. And then hopefully eventually go from 2 to 0. Yeah, 2 or 1 or 0. People ask about vaping. Is that a good alternative? Again, not really. We don't really know what's in vapes. Lots of chemicals. And again, the smoke is going in that same place, right? So right in the area that we want to protect. So I would say just avoid altogether.
Ideally, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very hard to quit, but let's not let perfect be the enemy of good. Have a little cutback, see how it goes.
Nice.
That's my hot take. Last question, because I'm just curious. A lot of professional voice users, I think, have homebrew methods of looking after their voice, like tea with honey and lemon or lozenges and things like that. Does that work? What's the deal?
I mean, it can work for some people. Yeah, we would say that, you know, drinking warm drinks, but not caffeinated drinks, so the honey and lemon method, you know, definitely. For some people, it can be nice and soothing, especially if you do have a little bit of a sore throat. We say ginger tea is quite good as well, but I would really be careful of things like lozenges, okay? The hacks, the halls, the soothers, there's a whole range of them out there, okay? You go into any chemist and you'll see a range of them. They contain alcohol and glycerin and menthol, all of which are actually quite drying for the throat. So yes, they will numb the pain if you have a sore throat, but actually we just go harder then. We speak louder and we continue to strain over that because we think, oh, I'm not feeling any pain, right?
Yeah.
So we do actually more damage in the long run. So really to be avoided. You can suck honey and lemon sweets that you can often get that don't contain those ingredients, but still I'd be wary of taking too much sugar as well. But yeah, always just keeping hydrated, just doing your water instead. Also, we mentioned the steaming, and a question I often get is, oh, should I put anything in the water? What about some albus oil, or some Vicks is great for opening up the throat. Great, again, if you've got a cold and you're really congested, but not for daily use with the voice. So to be avoided. Yeah, we want full sensation there. We just want the water to be clean, just to give us that full hydrating effect without anything else going on.
Beautiful. That's really good advice. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
It's
Always
been
nice
a
to
pleasure.
have an expert opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you for explaining it all.
That's what I do.
It's a fun reference to a very old TV show for probably most of the people watching this, but go ahead and Google it.
My name's Clarissa, by the way.
Great.
We'll leave it there.
Yes. Gorgeous.